Nemo Radio is on the air.
A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
All right, welcome back to another episode of Nemo Radio. This is one of my favorite people, and I'm not saying it just because she's listening right now, but Audra Christie is here, the number one coach around executive presence in the United States. She has an incredible story, and I think it's going to be really insightful for people because Audra has had tons of success already, kind of pivoting out of a corporate world, high-level HR job to becoming a coach and consultant who helps new leaders kind of transition into their first C-level position, reclaim executive presence, which we have to talk about what that is. So we have a lot of fun about that, and become more visible in the workplace. So Audra, though, I want to start, well, obviously by welcoming you to the show. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you for inviting me. I am so excited. It's been a long time coming. So I knew we would be at some point again.
I have to remember people like I'm already jumping in mid-conversation. Like people don't even know you. Okay, I got to start over. Like I know Audra. I followed you for years. So give us kind of your backstory. Kind of, I think a lot of our listeners, you know, we have a lot of coaches and consultants, obviously, are going to relate to your story. So if you don't mind indulging us, just kind of take us through the career journey and up to what you're currently up to today.
Yeah, more than happy to do that. So again, Audra Christie, executive coach and leadership development consultant. I made the bold decision in August of 2020 to step out, leave corporate America behind, and really pursue what I was designed on this earth to be. And my purpose is very clear: to deliver the unvarnished truth, one leader at a time. And I always knew that executive coaching was a thing. I just didn't have the language earlier in my career to kind of wrap around it. But I've always been around the C-suite. I've always been around executives. And as an HR business partner, I was always their confidant or the one that they trusted and the one who would just give them sound advice or basically just tell them what they needed to hear, but their direct reports were too chicken to say. So I always knew I had that. And when COVID introduced itself to the world, the year I decided to leave, my daughter was going to be homeschooled or virtual that year. And I didn't want a situation where I'm locked into a room on Zoom all day and she's in 5th grade trying to go to school. So I just said, enough. And I said, you know what, this is it. I was with L Brands and they were splitting. So I knew that my job was going to be eliminated. I think actually my husband said, you're the only one that's excited about your job being eliminated. And I was like, yeah, because it's just time to do something else. And it was just easy for me because I knew that, you know, I would live out my purpose. Now, when I started this, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew my zone of genius was coaching. Building a business, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue about using LinkedIn to just think about my business differently. I've always used it from a professional kind of resume, kind of this is kind of where you find me. But so this whole world was just new to me. And I'm so happy that I made the decision to step out. And I also made another critical decision about 9 months into building the business, that this was plan A. Because I had one foot in like, well, if a CHRO job comes about, you know, I'll see, I'm not really interested. And I was like, no, like this is plan A and I'm not entertaining because I don't want to do it. And B, it's going to work. So there's just no more plan B. And once I made that decision, the sky just started to open.
That's amazing. And, you know, for people that don't know, like you had this incredible background of really high end corporate, you know, jobs like VP of HR for, you know, one of the biggest employers in the world. And like, you know, you talked about people look at your resume. It's like, wow.
Globally. I traveled extensively across Latin America and Asia and South Africa. I traveled with the world's largest company CEO for a year and a half. I've always been in big jobs with big influence and big impact, which brings about a level of authority because I understand what executive presence is and I understand the behaviors of leaders. And that definitely accelerates me to be able to help leaders kind of transition into whatever job they have.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is because one of the things that our clients always struggle with, doing LinkedIn lead generation and content, everything else, is what makes you unique, different, better, right? And I remember when we first met Audra and you came and obviously worked with us as a client at the time, I was like, whoa, like you've been with the biggest movers and shakers, you've been their confidant, and there's not a lot of coaches that can claim that. And so that was something we really leaned into. And it was funny because we had a lot of back and forth, and I will admit to this day, you were right. I was wrong. You're smart. I'm dumb. You're cool. I'm an idiot. We had this huge battle
all
over
that
the
matches,
topic.
by the way, all that matches. But we had a pretty good virtual exchange.
It was very healthy, and it was all around this topic of executive presence. And I was convinced. And again, this is where you have to know your audience. And Audra obviously knows her audience better than I do. The marketing guy in me is like, that's just kind of this nebulous term. It doesn't really mean anything. No one's going to want it. And then you're like, no, I'm telling you, dude, like lead with this. It's going to work. And sure enough, you killed it on LinkedIn leading with that topic. So let's explain to idiots like me, what is executive presence and why does it resonate like so much with your target audience?
Yeah, so I recently wrote a post on my LinkedIn page and I made the comparison. If you're in corporate America and you don't know what executive presence is, it's like being in finance and not knowing what an earnings call is. So if you're in corporate, you know what it is. And one of the things as a business owner, coach, consultant, is I decided to specialize early. Now, a lot of marketing folks, a lot of preneurs, right? I don't know them all. They're not into that. They're like, offer everything. And I knew that my audience was specific. I knew if I could speak their language, because I've been there and all the things have happened to me. And I know that executive presence is the number one derailer as to why people don't accelerate their upward trajectory or think about those big assignments laterally or think about maybe it's time to exit. And if you don't master that and understand the benefits and the pros and the cons, you're always going to be invisible. So I knew that I needed to target my audience, but I have something to say because it's important and it's not going away. Now, some people will say, well, let's call it something else. You can call it whatever you want, but inside the talent discussion meetings, they're talking about it in a way that I outline in a book that's coming out soon, as well as in my course, that really gives you language to be able to translate what they're saying and most importantly, what they're not saying. So executive presence is this aura, it's this, and I'm sure you all have heard it, gravitas, the it factor. That's just the minimum price of entry. Like you have to look the part. Like you have to know your stuff. But when you want to show up and nail those awkward moments or be intentional about what the receiver needs in that moment, you can utilize our framework, which, talks about charisma, connection, credibility, conciseness, like all those things, because that's what they're saying about you. And I help people understand what it sounds like in those meetings. So to me, it's, projecting confidence. It's the knowing your stuff, understanding that you do have the it factor, but it's how you show up in that moment that counts. And you have to kind of set your intention. And I know for a fact, no one is talking about it the way that I do, which is why it goes back to my purpose to deliver the unvarnished truth, one leader at a time. Like you have to hear it because they're saying it. And you have to know what your narrative is around executive presence because it's a narrative out there. And if you don't go on a self-discovery journey to figure that out, you're always going to be ignored. You're always going to be passed over. And my goal is to raise your level of awareness and deepen your perspective around the topic.
Yeah, it's a great explanation. And I think I love this topic because it applies to everybody. I mean, it's obviously so important in the corporate setting, the high level, but I think with any business owner, especially being in front of clients or making sales or presenting or speaking, like there is something to be said. And I think it should provide a lot of hope for people that you can learn, that kind of presence, that kind of charisma.
Oh, absolutely. And it's
gravitas.
not just limited to corporate America. I
Yeah.
mean, that's my audience.
Yep.
But even as I'm building my business,
Yep.
relationships and talking to different audience virtually and in person, like you got to have presence and you got to own it. And the things that I teach, it's life-changing, but you have to do the work. You
Right.
have to do the work.
So let's talk a little bit about your journey, because I think this will be especially helpful for the different coaches, consultants, business owners listening. So you leave the corporate world, you take that leap, you kind of like, the expression, I'm going to burn the ships. There's no going back, right?
Yep.
This is plan A, B, and C. What were your service offerings at first? And then how and why did that lead and pivot into a book and a course? Like take us through that progression of how you've done things the last couple of years.
Yeah. So in deciding to define my niche early, I knew I only wanted to offer three things. And that hasn't changed. It's always been executive onboarding, leadership transitions, and executive presence. And the executive presence is for the emerging leader and or business owner, consultant, whoever that was. But I know that I knew that there was an audience for that particular group of people. Where I pivoted, I decided to use LinkedIn as the platform for the authority there, because I don't sell my coaching services on LinkedIn. I'm dealing with high, I don't want to say high net worth individuals, but I'm dealing with the C-suite, and they're not scrolling through social media looking for a coach like me. And if they are, then I'm not their person. I also knew that I didn't want to work with everyone. So I'm very specific about who I'm working with. And I think having that clarity up front, whether you're just starting your business and figure out what you're really good at, people love it when you're clear. And I'm very clear about what I want to do, but I am even more clear about the things I don't want to do. So that's how I develop a network, and the trust and the credibility is because I will pass them on to people who can help them, because every sale is not for me. And I just enjoy the process. I'm not tied to the outcome. And I think that's definitely what allows me to stand out, is I'm just clear about who I'm talking to. And I don't have to do what everyone else is doing. I'm doing it my way.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And so in the beginning, I know, like when we first started working with you, you were doing like virtual workshops and then like, extended like coaching and consulting kind of with a company and leaders. And then obviously, the big challenge that so many coaches and consultants run into is like, I only have so much time. Like I can't scale myself and have 100 clients. And so, obviously you've got a new book coming, which I forgot about, which is fantastic, and a course that's already live. Tell us what went into the thought process of creating a book and a course, and why that felt like the next step for you with your business.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I knew that I wanted to build a coaching practice, and I wanted to be live. I wanted to be in the moment, and I wanted my clients to experience me in the flesh. And as I started to facilitate these virtual sessions that were like 3 hours, the demand started growing. And I was thinking, how do I bottle all this up into a course? And I kept saying I wanted a course because that's what everyone was saying. Like, how could you be a business and not have a course? But I didn't really know what I was going to teach. And it wasn't until last year that I was able to partner with someone who took me through a really deep journey on what is my messaging, what makes this course unique, and what are people going to walk away with that they can get a result quickly and as if I'm in the room. So I wanted to scale it because I do believe for some people that are interested in working with me, they need to experience me, know, like, and trust me through a course. And then after they go through the course, then we're talking common language. And then you can then going to enroll in my hypo coaching circle, or you can think about the book, or you can think about live coaching. So I knew I wanted to think about how do I continue to build the business around my life, I work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Mondays are permanent well-being days. And Fridays, I may reserve 2 hours from 10 to 12 for admin stuff, catching up, or if there's like an emergency. But that's it. And it's 9 to 3. And I don't compromise. And best thing I could have done for myself was to gift myself with time. So I had to think about, okay, here's my revenue goal. Here's how I need to think about my product offerings. Here's what I want to do. Then how do I create moments around that and be able to scale? So that's how the book and the course came about. And the book is definitely deeper and richer. But the course gives you enough for you to be dangerous, for you to understand how you can course correct right away. And if you do what I tell you to do, it's going to work. Like hands down, people are raving about it. You know, it's really, really good. I have to say it's a really good course, but I waited. And as I think about, the audience here, just don't think you need to do something because everyone else is doing it on social media. Like I'm just clear and I'm okay with not having a gazillion dollars come from social media because that's just not what I do. And it's not where I want to spend my time. I spend it on LinkedIn because that's where my folks are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's key. And I like how you summarized how you got to that point where you kind of, for lack of a better term, you like tested the material live. Like you didn't reinvent the wheel. You didn't try to create a course out of thin air based on what you think people want. But it sounds like you really, thought long and hard about what are people constantly coming back about? What are they really resonating with in the live trainings? And then you're able to kind of bottle up the best of, right, as a course. Yeah. And obviously from a business perspective, it's great because now you have a lower ticket to entry to work with Audra or an introductory way to dip a toe in the water. You've got a book, which is always, I always call that the best business card in the world is having a book, right? Because people that come through your book, they really know, like, and trust you. They feel super comfortable. They're speaking your language. And that just naturally, I think every coach and consultant needs a book. Like it's just the number one way to win new business. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about what's in the book and the course. Obviously I see the course title. I have it pulled up, How to Reclaim Your Executive Presence, but maybe take us through what people can discover, with the book and the course, especially even if they're not in corporate, kind of the key takeaways, key lessons they're going to discover.
Yeah. So the course and the book will be outlined the same. So we talk about in module 1, defining what executive presence is and what it's not. And then we talk about exploring the 8 dimensions. And then my favorite part of the book and the course is around reframing authenticity, because the world, for some reason, feels like everyone needs to experience them, in a very interesting fashion. And I don't always know if that's good advice. So I help them understand, like, what does that really mean to reframe your authenticity and what do you want to be known for? And then we talk about a proprietary method I created around the principle of one thing, and then we pull it together. Now you will have similar exercises, but I go really deep back and forth between 2 in some of the areas, because some of that you need to hear and then you need to do, and then you need to come back and hear. So it's a nice compliment. Because you get the high level, people don't have a whole lot of time. The modules are not very long, right? I think about people's attention span, but you really get to understand my heart, what I'm passionate about, what my zone of genius is, and why this is different from what anyone will ever share with you. Like, this is just a gift, and bottling all of this up is so important, and the time is now, because ever since COVID, the need or the want or the desire to develop either yourself or people on your team is around your presence. And no one will ever say you don't have executive presence. It may be less than 2% of leaders. What they will say is you can't get to the point quick enough, which means that your clarity may be in question, or you can't connect with people, which means that you have an air about yourself that you only want to deal with certain levels. So I help you understand what's being said in those rooms so you can go, oh, that applies. I don't teach you how to be confident, because at this point, it's either you're confident or not. but I can help you understand or raise your awareness on how to take some of the tools or frameworks that I give you to be confident in that moment. But you got to decide, and you have to do your own work around confidence building. That's not my purpose. It's to give you the unvarnished truth.
Yeah, I really like that. And I really like the idea that whether you think about it or not, people do have a narrative they're attaching to you. And they're coming up with that narrative based on what you're doing every day, whether you're doing it online with your content you're sharing, whether you're doing it in the boardroom with how you conduct a meeting. And I do think there is something to be said for Audra's approach, which is like, yeah, you got to audit yourself and you got to look at like, what are people saying and who will evaluate me and give me an honest answer? Because that is the challenge at every level, right? Is having someone that will tell you, straight talk. Like, I think that's true. I was just watching, it was a really interesting thing. My kids are all into Mr. Beast, who's this YouTube phenomenon who, is probably gonna be the first billionaire from YouTube. And he's this kid from North Carolina that's now in his 20s, and he makes these insane videos and goes viral every time. And one of the keys he said was, I needed to surround myself with people that would tell me the truth and say that video stinks, or that content's bad, or that's not, he's like, because otherwise you can't get better, and I think that was insightful even in that world, right? It's totally like I don't know if millennial or Gen Z or whatever they are, but like even he gets it. Like you need truth tellers, and otherwise you're not going to get better. So I love all this. Well, here's what I want to do. Like I want to make sure people can find and access all this, because I know you've done such a great job kind of outlining your journey, where you've taken your business, why you've, kind of bottled up your expertise. And I think there's so much value here, even if you're not in the corporate setting, just for anyone to kind of improve themselves. And I think the course and the book are a great way to get access to you, right, at a price point where they can get introduced and then decide if they want to go further. And obviously, I like too that you're very clear on here's what I do and don't want to do and who I do and don't want to work with. I think that's brilliant. And I think people respect that. So where can they find you? Where should they go to get more of Audra online?
Pretty simple. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Audra Christie. And to learn more about the course, you can go to www.mindsetchangecoaching.com/how-to-reclaim-your-executive presence. So how to reclaim your executive presence, but there's hyphens in there. And you can definitely find me there.
I will put it all on the show notes too, so people don't have to try to memorize and type it out. So look at the show notes and we'll have clickable links. But yeah. And
then you can also just send me an email, info@mindsetchangecoaching.com. And I just want to say that while I speak, I'm very clear about my corporate audience. But if you just think about presence in your business, presence with your clients, it's universal. Everyone wants to be seen, heard, and valued. And how you tap into what the receiver needs in that moment will definitely position you not only as the logical choice for for your next contract, your next bid, whatever that is, next promotion, but people will walk away with a clear understanding of who you are as a leader and what impact you're going to make in their life, basically what's in it from them and kind of what makes you value and stand out. So to me, it's a universal concept, but you just have to play the game within the game because all of it's a game.
Yeah. Fantastic stuff, Audra. I think it's so helpful and inspiring to kind of see your journey. And I think so many people of this, our audience, this show are going to resonate with it. And I think too, there's just so much value in what you're sharing beyond the boardroom and just in general. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. So fun to always connect with you. We'll forever be connected through executive presence.
I love it. Every time I see that term, I'm like, oh yeah, there's one of my L's, one of my many losses. But hey, it turned into a great story and really appreciate you and everything you've done.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much.